Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Love Procurement Podcast. My name is Kelly Barner, and I'll be your host for this conversation. Today, I'm glad to welcome Florent Connac to the show. Flo is a project director for Cyrias, and he has decades of experience in procurement that we're going to dig into today. So, hi, Flo. Thank you so much for being with me.
Hey, Kelly. Thank you for having me in your podcast.
Absolutely. So we know right up front you have decades of experience. Can you tell us a little bit more specifically where you spent that time, what type of work you've done sort of within the procurement sphere?
Yeah, sure. I was an engineer at the end of my college, and I got the opportunity to meet the founder of Evalua just as an engineer, and we decided to work together, and I joined Evalua during the bubble internet in 2000. So that's why it's a long story for me. But at the end, if I try to look back, it's a good experience, and I guess it was a chance for me to jump in. And to try to sum up the journey is, for sure, I saw the growth, and technically it was really interesting I saw the market, but as well, like I said, I was an engineer, and at the beginning, I didn't have any point of view about the procurement area, and tied to this opportunity to work for this software editor, I met a ton of organizations in procurement, in several industries, in several countries, in several cultures. And so after more than 20 years, I'm still in this area, and I don't know why I need to look for another one. So at the end, yes, I'm still working in the technical space, if I can say, but I'm really close of the procurement space as well.
Now, one of the things that we ask everybody who joins us, because procurement is one of those funny spaces where people come from all over, all different kinds of backgrounds. A lot of people ended up in procurement without knowing all that much about what it was. But people do tend to stay once they find the field. And there's a lot of enthusiasm that usually goes with that. What is something that you love about procurement?
So, again, at the beginning, for me, it was just an opportunity to work, to be honest. But then, you know, when you can see quickly that the complexity to work in this area, you have a ton of processes, perspective, again, different industry, different practices. And you think that you know something, but actually when you enter in the new organization, you say, okay, I know something, that's true, because we have a basic understanding of the processes and so on. But in the detail, when you spend time with people, you learn a lot every time. So after, like I said, after 20 years, I still have interesting discussion with procurement leaders, and we say, okay, you have this perspective, it's really interesting. That for me, it's a new way to know how I can move on this direction, and so. That's why it's after the journey, I'm not bothered of this.
Now, where we're going to focus today actually builds on what you talked about in terms of relationships and things always changing and opportunities to learn new things. We're going to talk externally about procurement's relationships with suppliers.
Yes.
And when you and I spoke previously, you had made the comment, and it instantly sort of grabbed my attention, that you have noticed a marked increase in procurement's maturity level when it comes to managing those supplier relationships. Can you talk a little bit about what it is that you've noticed and how you think it signals that procurement has matured in this area?
Yeah, you're right. You need to talk about signals, because the signals I can see the last couple of years is tied to the projects we are deploying. It's tied to the RSPs. It's tied to the market as well. We can see new players in the SaaS editor or new data providers, and that because it's a brand new interest to be focused on the supplier relationship. So that's why the signals I can see the last couple of years is from this. And previously, you know, the challenges we had was just maybe a digital adoption for the suppliers and so on. And now we have a brand new complexity, a brand new maturity from the procurement leaders to say, okay, the digital adoption is done. Not totally true, actually. And then we need to jump to a new step and to be more accurate on this. And so we will see the reason of this, I guess.
Now, you mentioned you've noticed this over the last couple of years. So instantly, I feel like I need to ask, is this something that you think the maturity has been improved significantly since COVID, or is this a longer-term trend towards procurement having better relationships and taking a better approach to supplier management?
I guess it could be a kind of subject for a PhD question. But I agree with what you just said. Is COVID, I guess, had the impact to have a new focus on the supplier
Yes.
impact in an organization, and I guess the procurement CPOs they have been highlighted by this phenomenon, and so that's why big companies, big organizations, they have now the procurement strategy in, and yes, and one of the consequence of that is the supplier relationship. For instance, maybe we could elaborate later on, but about the risk, I don't know which
Yes.
organization can avoid the supplier risk. That for me, all of them need to take care of this.
Yeah. Now, if we think a little bit about what has changed in terms of maturity, we certainly talk in procurement a lot about the importance of soft skills, which, in my opinion, are some of the hardest skills out there to have and master. But, you know, the relationship, communication, influencing, those types of skills versus our ability to onboard them better or our ability to manage their performance better and communicate that back to them. Do you think it's just that procurement has gotten generally better in the soft skills area and that's paying off from a human relationship standpoint? Or have we actually made changes to process and technology that have helped the whole business exchange along?
For sure, it's both, actually. It's, like I said, is before it was just to handle the digital transformation, okay, where you need to handle the regular processes in S2C and P2P with your suppliers. And obviously, day after day, this kind of processes is more standard, and so the suppliers are more involved technically with the technical ecosystem of each customer. And so that obviously we are going in this direction, still in this direction, but like I said, it's a kind of the procurement leaders has a kind of new complexity to handle.
Sure.
And they have a better maturity as well. So we saw new requirements, to handle, to have a better view of the sub-tiers of the suppliers, to know what is the level of diversity, how they can work with the small businesses and so on. This kind of area where at the end it was theoretical, but now it's becoming a reality for them, and they need to navigate in this area. And so it's what you said is a little bit like before. For me, they need to apply clear processes, not simple processes, but I mean, we need to limit the list of suppliers for each commodity, something like this. And now it's not, I mean, I'm not saying that it's for all commodities, it's like this, but they need to handle a new level of complexities. And when you are talking about soft skills, yes, if they not open their mind, I guess it's not enough for them, and they need to have the support of systems to help to support them for this.
Well, and as you point out, not all suppliers are going to be managed the same way. Not all categories are going to be managed the same way. Have you noticed whether this maturity applies to the supply base in general, or whether procurement has instead said, this is our list of key or strategic, whatever they call them, like that short list of really important suppliers, and they've made improvements in terms of maturity there? Or is it something that you've seen more across the board?
So first, obviously, they need to reinforce the knowledge of their strategic suppliers. So
Yep.
day after day, they have new requirements to follow their strategic suppliers and so on. But what I said about COVID, or what I said about the all efforts they are doing on their side, is they will have a broader view of their portfolio, and they need to be ready to be more flexible with their internal communities, and to be ready to propose new alternative and so on. So let me have just maybe an example, and
Sure.
I guess it's for just indirect. It's not necessary for strategic, but 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the objective was to have a limited catalog for laptops or something like that, where you have only three items, three references, and you need to order this. Obviously, the ITs need to work to propose the flexibility on this, but the procurement area as well. And so today, if you zoom on the computer commodities, the complexity of the catalog is larger than before. And that for me is just an example that the old rules to limit clear catalogs and so on, it's not the rule for all commodities, and they need to have an open mind for this. So that is just an illustration. Obviously, in the direct sector, it's necessary to secure the products and so on, but in the indirect area, we are seeing a clear move to open mind and to propose for their internal customers a new flexibility.
So it's interesting you talk about sort of the differences between direct and indirect and some of the changes that we're seeing in each place. I'm wondering another way to look at that is something like geography. Whether the location of the company, the procurement team, the buyer, versus where the supplier is, plays some sort of role. Do you see, especially where we're talking about global companies that have global operating units and global suppliers, do you see time and distance playing a role in terms of how well procurement manages suppliers, or have all of our digital communications helped us sort of improve communication and therefore relationships along with them?
Yes, again, you are talking about a big organization where they have complex geographical issues and so on, and they deployed all across the world, and so they have several ERPs and something like this. Why I'm talking about this is before the challenge was to gather all information in a single place. I'm not saying that is not still the issue, but we are seeing companies where they passed this problem with implemented a middleware. They implemented a middleware or VMM and so on. This kind of technology to be sure that they have clear data for their supplier, and is what I'm seeing. So here, I'm described it the technical constraint we can have in terms of geography, but what we are seeing is they have a lack of knowledge on specific region of the world. The simple issue of to know the address of the suppliers. Just this simple issue is not obvious to address correctly this. And so we are seeing now new data providers where they are very accurate on this. And so, to facilitate the deduplication of their suppliers, something like this, it's possible now to have a better data quality in terms of address all across the world. And at the end, to have a better result for the buyers and the procurement leaders for this. So here I'm talking about addresses, but it's the same thing about fraud. It's the same thing about other topic. And maybe we can open the door of the complexity of the supplier risk, because before it was the companies were focused on operational risk in terms of capacity and so on. And now you have geographical risk, you have environmental risk, you have for sure the reputational risk, a ton of other problems. The buyers need to handle at the end. And if you are working for a global company, you need to have the same level of approach for all your suppliers.
Address is an excellent one because, yes, a lot of people definitely are still struggling with that. But especially when you combine it with the topic of risk, we could take something as simple as, let's say, a news story that there's been a fire at a warehouse that you know is used by one of your suppliers. And you say, okay, I'm going to look in my database and I'm going to see, is the address that I have for them the address of this warehouse? You probably have the headquarters address, a corporate address. They probably have multiple warehouses. You have almost no certainty simply based on the question of, where is my supplier? Question mark. Right? You can't answer that question. And if you're seeing news stories, there's a massive fire and supplies are being destroyed and orders are being destroyed and packaging is being destroyed, that information doesn't help you. So I think that's actually an excellent point. And it brings us back around, as all things do, to the question of digital platforms and the data that goes in them. Obviously, our platforms have come a long way in terms of usability, ease of implementation, user experience, all of that. But there's clearly still some work that we need to do. If we combine that idea with procurement's continued efforts to build these stronger supplier relationships, do you see any specific opportunities for those two desired improvements to happen together?
Yes. So like you said, first of all is what I'm calling the adoption and to avoid any friction. That for sure now we are seeing better maturity from the platform to propose this experience clearly. And now we are entering in the new area. It's a kind of efficiency of the processes. The issue for the supplier to load several times the same credentials, to load every time the same information for the same purpose, and so on, and as well to invite for the customer their suppliers to try to innovate together, something like this. So, like I said, we are in the kind of second phase of the maturity with our customers for their suppliers, where we have now a clear view. We have the adoption, the digital adoption, and so what we can do more. And again, when we are seeing the RSPs and when we are seeing the all offers from data providers, something like this, we can propose a better implementation to be sure that the buyer can be more efficient at the end, and have a better understanding of their portfolios, have a better efficiency in their processes for this. So I can show you maybe a couple of success we have.
That would be great.
We can see for this is for instance, I'm thinking about several success, but it's a company, it's a manufacturer in the steel tube for the energy industries, and so they, you are talking about strategic suppliers. They have more than 10,000 suppliers, and so for them they decided to collect data from several data providers to secure the level of fraud, to secure the vacancy, to secure the environmental ESG data, and so on. And so at the end, they have the collection of these risks, not only for their supplier risk, but supplier strategic, but for all suppliers. And here after, I guess we deployed this 2 years ago, and they are more than happy to have this data, and they saw the benefits to collect this data from all data providers for this. So we have these success stories. I had the opportunity to work for the procurement platform for City of New York, and for me it was a great experience, and I worked daily with them I guess they have an interesting maturity to know how they can work with their suppliers to just to handle their onboarding, to handle the knowledge of the sub-tier, how they can handle their diversity, how they can work with the small businesses and so on, and they are paying attention of this on their own. And that for me, it's really interesting. It was a clear game changing from my perspective with the supplier relationship with the customers. Then I have other example like I remember a customer, they built a roadmap for 2 years to work with their suppliers. Currently, we are in the RFP with the customer is focused on the suppliers and how they can measure their risks. So day after day, like I said, and from my perspective, the regular processes, if I can say, the S2C, the P2P processing is not on the back because it's still we still work on this, but we can see a clear attention on the supplier relationship and the clear new requirements to know how they can be more accurate, more efficient with their suppliers.
It's interesting. One of the stories, just to go back to that you shared about New York City, that's a really interesting one because we talked a little bit about the split between indirect and direct and some differences you might see there. But when you think about those relationships in the context of public sector procurement, yes, we all know as private sector procurement professionals that these are community members. We have relationships. There's a brand reputation to uphold. It is a completely different game when you were talking about the people that are your constituents, right? That is a completely different perspective on relationship management. And so fascinating that you got to have that experience. And it's just a reminder that every situation is a little bit different. The stakes are higher and lower in different places, but there are always these challenges that have to be addressed. And there's always progress that can be made.
Like I said, the procurement leaders are not unemployed at all. They have a job to do in the future. Yes. So I'm not concerned for them, actually.
Absolutely. Now, when we think about everything that you and I have discussed today, what you've experienced, given that we're talking about procurement's maturity, right, specifically in the context of supplier relationships, we always like to round each of one of these episodes out with a piece of advice. We think of it as sort of sharing the love. What piece of advice would you want to share with a procurement team that, given what we just joked about, is probably very busy, but knows that they need to be investing in and improving their supplier relationships? Is there a piece of advice that you would share?
I don't know if it's an advice, actually, but what I'm saying often is procurement is a kind of a crossroad of other departments for suppliers. And for me, the procurement leaders, they are playing a specific role to promote the supplier perspective or something like that to the other departments. And again, tied to the platforms, for me, it's the role of the procurement leaders is to facilitate the communication between the suppliers to the other departments. I'm thinking about the quality departments when they need to handle audits, with the legal department, with the contracts, the compliance as well, where it's not normally handled. It's not totally true by the procurement leaders, but or the procurement department. But actually, they need to facilitate. They need to own this responsibility beyond their suppliers to their own internal departments. So, for me, the procurement platforms is a kind of first door, single door for the suppliers to be connected to the other departments in the organization. So at the end, I don't know if it's an advice, but the procurement leader needs to own this for their suppliers. For me, it's critical.
Absolutely. Critical for the suppliers and for procurement and for the business, right? Yes. Now, Flo, for people that are maybe meeting you for the first time by listening to or watching this conversation, what's the best way for them to reach out and get in touch or connect with you?
No, I guess the best way is the regular way. You can contact me through LinkedIn. So I don't know how I can share that, but you feel free to contact me through LinkedIn. Yes.
And we will definitely link to your LinkedIn profile. So wherever people have found this episode, that information should be there. Flo, thank you so much for joining me, not just to talk about this important topic, but to bring us some good news that procurement is making real progress in this area.